Hey, hey, hey. Welcome back, everybody, to Two Recruiters and a Microphone. Pete Cochran here, Israel Swanson. Yep, we are here, and we're kicking off another one of our video series and celebrating a little bit of the National Entrepreneurship Month in November. As you guys could probably tell, we've kind of talked through a couple different entrepreneurs. And today we have Brad Beach with us, which is obviously, in my opinion, a serial entrepreneur is like what I like to call him. But thanks,
Yep.
Brad, for joining us today. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to talk, chat,
Yeah,
reveal all of my wisdom or lack thereof,
Your secrets,
my
your dark
secrets.
yeah.
secrets.
Yeah,
We're
I
we're
got
definitely
plenty.
looking for some secrets to make us all millionaires. So that's why you're here, Brad. So hopefully,
Oh,
we'll get through
I'll
it.
do my best.
Excellent. Well, cool. So yeah, so tell us a little bit about your background. I know you're from Ohio, Ohio State after college. So kind of just walk through your journey.
Yeah. I grew up in a tiny town, farm town in Ohio. Population about 1,400 people. Uh, I instantly realized I don't belong, so I raced out of there when I turned 18. Went to Ohio State, and graduated with a degree in economics. And believe it or not, my first job out of college was working for uh, ADM as an agricultural commodities buyer. That lasted a year. Again, I realized I don't belong here either. And that's when I took my first job in staffing and recruiting, and that was in 1993, I believe,
Wow.
with
Yeah.
Robert Half. And I worked there for 6.5 years. Um, got promoted a few times, was an area manager, and realized that the large corporate environment probably isn't for me. I just couldn't buy into the directive to do things without really understanding the reasoning behind it. And so I got into a disagreement with my then boss, and I quit on the spot and walked out and never went back. And
Uh-huh.
that's when my entrepreneurial journey began. I started this business out of my bedroom, in with my brother as my tenant, who
And this was
quickly
in
criticized me
'99.
when I got
So you're
home.
talking about before Y2K. So man, those are
Yeah,
there's
it was
some of the good
1999.
days, some good days, and
Yeah,
then obviously a couple of years later, not so much with 2001. But yeah,
yeah.
you
There
rode
was
a
a lot
nice
of
wave.
a lot of challenges.
Because
Um,
late '90s staffing, especially in technology, that was a hotbed then,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
well,
Tons
yeah,
of money to be made.
but and just to tell you, in 1998, I worked for Robert Half for 5 years without ever having a computer or email. We got it in '99, and that's when I left. And so, I didn't have a computer. I had to buy a computer. My brother was criticizing me the whole time, like, "What the hell did you do? How are you going to pay the mortgage?" He was unemployed, going to school to get his MBA. He was concerned, rightfully so. I guess there's something to be
And this was
said,
when
with
computers were like 3 or 4 or 5 grand, and you're just like this
yeah,
big bulky tube
and the
computer.
monitor was like this big,
It weighed like
um,
700 pounds. Yeah.
literally, yeah. Um, and so I think at the moment I knew, like, I just put myself in a very bad position. I've got to figure out a way to get out of this. I can do this on my own. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how it started. And here we are many years later, um, with my one company, which is Tailored Management, which is a global staffing provider, and then of course Jobvious,
Yeah.
which is probably the more dynamic and interesting of the two.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to have a question. So leaving half and understanding the good and the bad and how to do stuff in the agency life. So how different was coming from one of the nation's largest agencies to starting
Yep.
your own, and the difference in plug and play? Because also from a timeline standpoint, when you were at half, the the technology they would have been using or even demanding you to use from an ATS, those really weren't a thing. All of that stuff was not even there. So you were riding through or evolving with staffing at a very
Yeah.
critical time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree.
Can you kind of tell us that story, like the ebbs and flows of that?
So the first thing I did, first of all, I didn't have a computer, but back then, if you can imagine, I had a cell phone. I had all of my contacts, and the first activity I did take was to start reaching out to everybody and anybody I knew. And then I got a phone call one day from an individual who was an entrepreneur. He got my name from an acquaintance of mine, and he wanted to invest in me, and so he did, which allowed me to move out of my bedroom and my Office Depot desk, which I was very proud of, and go
I'm
into
keeping the desk. I'll take your money.
Yeah,
I got it. The desk goes with me.
the desk stayed there until I moved.
Yeah.
And so he invested in me, and we ended up parting ways a few years later, and then I ventured out on my own, which is what led me here today. There's been a lot of challenges. I mean, I remember back in the old days where your version of an applicant tracking system was an Excel spreadsheet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
with
when I started, we were using Lotus Notes. That was our ATS, was Lotus Notes. So
okay,
I
yeah,
mean,
that is dating you back. Lotus 1, 2, 3.
hey,
Yeah,
I told you that I was
is,
50 when Israel started. So this is I'm an old man.
yeah. I think that I'm older, but thank you.
And
But
Pete's lying also. So
Yes,
and
but
so
I did really use Lotus Notes. That is a true story. So yeah,
I believe it.
yeah.
And so I just was always very, very receptive to new technology, new ideas. I was always rather innovative in trying to find better ways, more efficient ways of doing things. That was one of the reasons and one of the driving forces, right, that pushed me out of Robert Half, is I wanted the freedom, to exercise the ideas that I had. So yeah, it was very, very scary going from my bedroom to, getting my first office. I'm pretty good at sales, so I was able to, infiltrate some of the larger companies in Central Ohio rather quickly. Many of which we still work with over the last 20 years.
Was it just like
And
you hustling, or did you have a team? Or you mentioned your brother, but was it just like, I mean, how many people
oh
were
god,
just like?
I got my brother a job somewhere else, but he never helped me.
Well, he
Eventually, I
was your
had a
first
team.
placement, so that's okay. That's good.
right, right.
Yeah,
It was me at
yeah.
first, and then as time went on, I ended up acquiring people as we grew, salespeople and recruiters.
Mm-hmm.
But the real turning point in my life and in the business was probably in 2009, I believe, or 10, when one of our clients, Cardinal Health, asked us, and by the way, as you guys recall, back in those days, right? Anybody you serviced in the staffing business, you had to have kind of a brick and mortar office there, right?
Oh yeah, that was how
At
it
least in
was.
those
Yeah, if
days.
you're not in that office or in that region, you don't get it. It's simple.
Right. So Cardinal Health asked us, "Hey, could you guys help us staff in Albuquerque, New Mexico?" And first, I had to look at a map and find out, okay, where is that? Joke, I knew where it was. And we did not have an office there, obviously. But of course, I said, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." And then we would race to figure it out, right?
Right.
So we had really good success recruiting remotely, and I decided, I go, look, I think we're onto something.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Mm-hmm.
brand ourselves differently, make this a central recruiting hub, talk about the benefits of our service being in one hub, every other company that you work with is disconnected. Each branch has their own priorities. Yours isn't one of them. We have dedicated resources, so on and so forth. And then we started experiencing
like the beginnings of the national recruiting centers, right? The NRCs, all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we did it way back in the old days. And funny thing is that MetLife was one of the first clients that we landed, and Mel, who worked for Mike, I don't know if you know Mel, she's now the CPO at Cognizant. We presented to her, and she was like, "How are you guys going to do this from Columbus, Ohio?" And we're like, "We've managed to do it before," and so on.
I was going to say, like, why not? Tell me why not? Like, why are we not? Like, there's the age-old thing that we've all been in this business a long time. You need internet, you need a phone, you need a computer. I can be anywhere in the world, and I should be able to do my job effectively. Like, what's it?
Right.
Yeah.
But back then, right?
But back then you couldn't. Like,
no, bring them into the office, do a face-to-face interview, and all of that
stuff.
Drop off
donuts, drop off the Chick-fil-A, chicken minis. Yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
So she was really against it, but Mike gave us a shot. And a year later, we were at a conference, and she said, "Man, I got to tell you, you guys, you really proved me wrong," because we were their best vendor. And we were sitting around a fire, and I remember that a gentleman by the name of Ben, who runs the Cigna program, was kind of doing jabs back and forth with Mel about how his program's better. And she's like, "Well, is tailored management?" He's like, "We have the best program." And she said, "Is tailored management in the program?" He says, well, no. And she's like, "Then you don't have the best program." Excellent. And after that,
that's the cheerleader you want. That's one that you want in the corner.
Yeah.
And after that, Ben sat down with us, and we ended up in that program, and the rest is kind of history. So it was a great journey. And then, many years later, of course, everybody else started doing it as well. But, it wasn't a novelty and a differentiator anymore.
Right.
Which is, kind of where we are today, many years later. But we've had great success. And I've been in this business like maybe yourself 30 years. Oof.
Yeah, I don't know. I think about that too when I think 24 years. So yeah, I mean, thinking 1993, like we were saying, with no ATS, no technology, no computer, picking up a piece of paper, resume, and literally getting on your horse and carriage and riding towards your client, right? I mean, that's really what it was, right? So it's just,
that's exactly.
Put it on a pigeon and mail it, Yeah.
We'd have a rec come in. I'd go to the filing cabinet, pull out a stack of files, and just start calling people. Yeah. It's hard to believe.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Anybody that's been in this nightmare called staffing for as long as you have, because that it only means two things. Either you've been very successful in this industry, which is a nightmare, or you're crazy. So I'm going to go with the first and say that you're very successful. So then,
and a little bit crazy, Brad, because of what you're doing. So I got to give you a little bit of crazy.
It does take some crazy to.
It requires
be an entrepreneur, and so
the crazy ones are changing.
The crazy thing, So then you decided to, and I hope I'm not jumping the gun, but then you decided to start another company that has nothing to do with staffing.
Well, it does.
It does. Well, it's a software. Yeah. It's a software. Yeah, right. Sorry, it's a product. But it's not. That's what I meant. It's not traditional. It's not a traditional firm. It's now you're going into product.
Yeah, I did, and the reason why is for the last 4 to 5 years, I've been doing a lot of self-reflection on tailored management and the industry. And, look, this is not rocket science, right? We're not developing, the cure for cancer. And what I realized is our industry has become mature. And what we've seen as a result is our sub to hire rates, which were at like 15% in most of these programs, dipping down in the 5-6% range. A lot of that is caused by direct sourcing, recs that get released. They're also released to direct sourcing, then get canceled. Overpopulation of programs with 100 million in spend that have 50 vendors. And I was just writing up a overview for another person to explain why that's a challenge, because every program that you're in, they require you to cover, right? And what that means is that you have to have 2 subs, usually at a minimum, for each opening. A program with 100 million in spend is probably going to have 300-400 openings a month, which means that you have to have 600 to 800 subs.
Yeah,
you can do the math,
and
right?
a certain kind of time, right? You have to have it within 48 hours or 72, whatever that is. Yeah, the good old scorecards.
And you have to do it in their time frame, but you have to service all of those recs, but you only have the opportunity, all things being equal, to capture 2.5 million in revenue, and with a gross profit margin of 25%, maybe if you're lucky, maybe less. Well, the cost of the recruiters alone to cover that is unsustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I put together this document called the vendor perspective. And what it does is it's a big calculation, right? That you plug in the numbers, number of vendors, number of spend, number of canceled recs, average pay, average bill, average tenure. And, it spits out like what the optimal gross profit or the likely gross profit is that you're going to be able to capture, or revenue.
Nice.
And it paints a clear picture. So I present it to clients and they're like, wow, this is really insightful. I'm like, well, it tells you, right, that your vendors aren't able to sustain this. Right. And what I realized is they don't care. And so, which was kind of surprising.
You mean the clients don't care? The clients just
first of all, they maybe they cared a little, but not enough to actually take action.
Right.
Right.
And some clients would get a little bit argumentative about it. I'm like, you can't. This is the data. You can't dispute the data.
Mm-hmm.
One of our clients actually has a mandate that you fill 20% of the requisitions as part of the scorecard, but they have 8 vendors.
Well, mathematically doesn't make any sense. Okay.
Right.
Well,
so I'm like, the writing's on the wall. It's clear. This doesn't work, right? It just doesn't work. And, in that same period of time, you started seeing all the MSPs offshoring. All of their personnel. So the consultative aspect of what they did left, right? I was probably one of the last companies, Tailored Management, to offshore. And we only did it a year ago. I was reluctant to do it.
That's if you just did it a year ago, that's a very, very long time to actually start to invest in offshore. Like, man, they've been doing that since I started. So
right. But it's I think one of my good qualities and one of my downfalls is I build deep relationships with people. I value people. I get my fulfillment out of positively impacting the lives of the people that I work with and that work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Why else be an entrepreneur, right? If it's not really, it's not about the money. It's about the legacy that you leave behind. Right. So when I realized that this industry is broken and something needs to fix, I was determined to come up with a model, and that's where Jobvious was born. I'm like, why are we concentrating recruiting in companies like a Tailored Management? Why don't we empower the world and give them the ability to be de facto kind of recruiters at their leisure? And so what we say, one of our coin phrases is Jobvious, where your network is your net worth. And what that means,
it's a good one. Someone actually just said that to me last week too. So I remember you telling me that when I first met you, and I was like, that's a good one. It's a very, very good tagline. Yeah. And it's very, very true. I mean, very true.
Yeah, it's very true because we found a way to monetize the network that each individual has nurtured and grown with and created throughout their life, which most people value very much. And so now what we've done is we've developed a platform that allows you to invite those people into your network, and then as contingent labor requisitions populate into the platform, they're matched to individuals that are qualified. So Israel, if you're in Pete's network and a rec came in, for a project manager, for example, and you matched, Pete would get notified of the match and ask if if he wanted to refer you, which he would. It would flow through the platform, probably through a VMS tool for a client to consider. If you got hired, let's say $50 an hour pay rate, Pete then would make $5 to $6 an hour in passive income for every hour you work on site in that engagement. And so it's an incredible way to make passive income as well as help out friends. And it is network driven because individuals can only be part of one network. So, we believe that what you want to do is go out and invite the people that you know as quickly as possible, because if you don't, your social circles interact with one another. And if you aren't first to invite them, they likely will be invited by somebody else and then be lost for good, right? And so that fear of missing out component is a big driver.
That's what I found most unique about your platform, Brad, and what you've done, and to take all of your history and all the things that you've learned over the course of 30 years. But in Israel, this as well, and any of our listeners that are recruiters, we're only as good as the network that we have. And then when I would train recruiters in the past, I would train them on, once you get to a certain point, your network is now recruiting for you. You're reaching out to the best Java person that you know, or the best project manager that you know. Who else do you know? But what I thought was very unique about your particular platform with Jobvious was that it was contingent. That's not common. Like in every company that I've ever worked for, or any firm that I've ever worked for, it's always a flat fee that you get for referring somebody. $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. That's a common thing within internal. When you're an internal person for a company.
And
so
also
when you first pitched it to me, sorry, Israel.
Oh, I was going to say also, Pete, it not only is that referral like that one-time payment, but it's also hinged on making sure that individual makes it 90 days, makes it whatever that managed service agreement is that you had signed, versus day on, you're already collecting money. You're making money because it's contingent. It's really cool.
I frequently, this gets brought up a lot. And what also gets brought up a lot is, hey, can you do this for direct hire? And now the answer is no. And the reason is because before I even started development, I dug in and did a lot of research on internal referral bonus programs at a few of our clients as well as internally. What I discovered is that money does not motivate anybody in those scenarios. We did tests where we would evaluate referrals at a $2,500 referral bonus, us and clients, and then double it and make it $5,000 to see what would happen. Because most companies think if they increase the referral bonus, it's going to drive greater participation.
Of course they do.
What we found is the exact same number of referrals came in at 5,000 as they did at 2,500, which translates to me that people aren't motivated by the money. It's about the circumstance. If you're pushing an internal referral bonus today and they happen to leave and run into somebody, maybe they'll mention it, but that's not motivating them. But when you give somebody the opportunity to create a business that produces passive income continuously, as Jobvious does, it creates a whole different world for these individuals. And I hate to bring the Uber into it, but that was one of the inspirations. I mean, Uber, who would have guessed, right? That 10 years ago, if I said, I got this great new platform, it's going to allow the stranger down the street to pick up your wife or your kid and drive them over to school or airport, wherever. Right. Would you invest in that?
No. Even better, you go, you know what? Yeah, now you can.
Uber Eats, I'm going to have that same stranger go and pick up food for you and drop it off at your house. Wait, who is he?
Actually, I don't know. They're not even going to drop it off at your house. They're going to drop it off at some stranger's house that you're renting through an Airbnb that you had no idea. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's like to your point. It's so crazy the world that we had 10 years ago to now. That's common. It's super common.
Right. So anybody now with a car can earn passive income, right?
Yep.
Anybody with an extra room can earn passive income.
Yep.
Everything is that you could ever want in your life, from a toilet to a motorcycle, you can buy on Amazon. I mean, this is the world that we are in, and the only industry which is lagging behind is this one: contingent labor, talent acquisition. There's been no innovation since the creation of the internet. People are preaching AI, and I think that is a long ways off. I don't know if you guys remember, but back when the internet was created, the talk then was, oh, it's going to destroy the talent acquisition business.
Oh, yeah.
We aren't going to need recruiters anymore, and obviously that wasn't true.
I can find everybody online now. I don't need to call Israel anymore. I'm just going to call Brad.
Yeah.
He's going to take my call. Like, no. I mean, look at what happened. The polar opposite happened. Like,
Right.
absolutely.
Well,
Yeah, I agree.
I think one of the reasons that staffing has withstood this test of time like it does, even though the thing that staffing always will have is the gift of gossip. So when you have that passive candidate that you've worked with in the past, and you do get coffee, you get a beer, you do whatever, it's not just it's the catch up. Like, oh, hey man, how's it going? Well, I'm ready to potentially stick my toes in. What's the environment like? What do you hear? Or you're reaching out to someone, hey man, my buddy Tom is about to get cut. You're the guy. So there's that gap. There's that gossip variable to the talent acquisition equation that no amount of technology, and that's why direct sourcing doesn't work. That's why all the big things that they always say is going to take over staffing fail, because there is no gossip. There's that variable, and it depends on how big the gossip can be. But
Right.
it's I like to call talent, depending on who you are, it's always a Kevin Bacon 3 degrees away from who you know or who you don't know, or who that person knows. And I mean, honestly, Brad, even before we started recording, we took 15 minutes to understand how I know Pete, how you know Pete, how Pete knows the other guy, and all of a sudden we all have this weird connection to Beeline, and then we have a weird connection to Doug Levy, and I've never met you, and you're in Ohio, and then it's like, oh, and we're all in staffing. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, we're all
we're
1 degrees, but we all didn't meet each other through Doug. Doug, that's, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, it is super crazy.
It's good that you brought that up, because one of the other inspirations was 6 degrees of separation, right? And the reason that that's important is the massive amount of people that can be amassed in a platform with the network effect. If I invite 10 people to my network, and each of those 10 invite 10, by the time you get six layers down, you have 1 million people populated in the platform from me.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of remarkable. And to answer the AI, you're right. It's about, you can't remove people from the people business.
I was going to say the same thing. This is a human game. Recruiting is still going to be a human game. Sorry.
And I think that I can sum up where AI is today by an experience I had going through the Wendy's drive-thru with my son. There was a car in front of me, and I don't know if they've done this where you guys are, but now there's an AI that comes across the drive-thru. And there was a lady in front of me, and I had my window down, and the AI said, "Can I take your order?" And she tried to give the order, and the thing responded incorrectly, and she just screamed, "Can I speak to a live person, please?" And then a live person got on. And so that is about where we are with the AI. So that's why I'm not incredibly worried about it. But the true benefit of Jobvious, honestly, is it not only doesn't take the people out of the process, it brings more people in.
I was about to say, it actually empowers them. Yeah.
It does. It empowers people, and you get access to all of the candidates, whereas most recruiting firms, and most of them will agree, that we all go to Indeed, we all go to ZipRecruiter. They're all fishing out of the same pond. And there isn't access.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
There's no way to get access to passive candidates unless you have somebody sourcing on LinkedIn, which is kind of a zero gain kind of endeavor, because there's too many pings from LinkedIn these days, and you can't afford it anyway. So Jobvious does it, by empowering people, rewarding people, and it's fulfilling, to think that we could impact the lives of so many people.
Mhm.
And so right now, when we go to clients and we're talking about it, 100% of the time, the client's like, "Wow, this is the most innovative thing that I have seen," and I've seen a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
How does it work? And we're like, "Well, we would partner with you. You would announce that you've partnered with Jobvious as the internal referral platform for contingent labor. We would follow up with all the associates and show them how to build out networks and so on and so forth, with the optimal goal of redirecting 25% of your contingent labor spend to your own employees. And guess what? They're going to be appreciative. And what else? Your retention is going to skyrocket. We have a client where deploying Jobvious increased referrals 1,400% and increased retention 60 or
Wow.
70%, because an
Wow.
employee that is making $200 or $300 a week off somebody working over there, I make sure that they're going to be happy, right? You have a built-in employee relations person right on site. And so the
Wow.
benefits are exponential, and Jobvious saves money because our standard bill rate is a 32 to a 36% markup because we don't have
Yes.
recruiting costs.
Well, I was about to say,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So you're saving them a tremendous amount of money. Like, yeah, even across the board.
We save money, increase retention. And there's a noted increase in permanent employee engagement and fulfillment, because they are able to impact the business in a visible way that is encouraging and fulfilling.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And
When the idea of Jobvious, Brad. So walk through that, right? We've gone through where we are now, but like when was the aha moment for you when you said, okay, this is what we want to do? And then the second part of that question is, because you haven't come from the product tech space, how was that? How was that challenge to say, okay, now I have to actually build this thing? And Israel and I both have a little bit of the product background. That's a very challenging obstacle that you have to overcome, coming from a sales and staffing background. So walk me through a little bit of the
Owning a software product.
Right.
Yeah. Owning a
And
software
building
product is not. Oh,
Well,
yeah. Well, building it and then maintaining
Scaling
it.
it.
Like,
Right.
it's, the whole thing. All of it is
Mhm.
so much. There's so much more to building, owning, and maintaining software product than the layperson has any clue in. It's not like, I restored this old car and I can leave it in my garage and I can turn it on every once in a while just to make sure it's good. That's not product.
No. You're absolutely right. First, the aha moment was I was at a restaurant after an OSU football game. Had a few drinks, so I called an Uber. And the Uber picked me up at the restaurant. And I started talking to him, and he mentioned he worked on the other side of town. And then he worked on the south east side of town, but lived on the northwest side. He's like, yeah, every night when I go home, I just turn on the Uber, and if I pick somebody up, for part of the ride, that covers gas money. And that was my aha moment.
It's the easy pay. It's the fast pay. It's like, I want to make a couple $100 a night. Boom, pick it up, take them to the airport and back.
It's
make money.
passive.
Yep.
Right. It's passive. It's easy.
Mhm.
And that's the thing why Jobvious is fully passive. You don't really have to do anything other than invite people, and then the system does the rest. I knew that if it wasn't passive, that it wouldn't work, because I can't ask people to be proactive. All we can ask is that value your network, invite them. And to answer your question about owning and building a technical platform, It's not in my wheelhouse. It's completely opposite of all of my skills. I am impatient. I'm very driven. I am. It, it's it's like I can't coordinate all of the thoughts in my head. It seems like every week on a Scrum call there was a new feature. Wait, oh, we forgot we didn't do this or do this. You don't realize how many different levers there are.
Oh yeah.
Even if you map them out, it's like,
oh, that's going to change.
How did we forget? Yeah,
it's absolutely
going to
change.
Forget this?
Mm-hmm.
And
you can have the absolute best whiteboard discussion. This is the product. This is exactly what this is going to do. And 2 weeks later, you're like, let's go ahead and wipe that off the board because that's not going to work at all. And you start over and over and over. Yeah. No, I mean, it's scope creep, as we call it, right? That's it. Yeah.
But you hate, it's like, I hate the words that are coming out of my mouth right now, but this has to be included.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And, we can't live without this.
Mm-hmm.
And, to top it off, the worst part was we engaged with a third-party development company, which turned into being a absolute nightmare.
Were they stateside or were they offshored or a blend?
The individuals that I worked with were stateside, but all of the development was offshore.
Okay.
And it's not a product of the developers. It's a product of bad business people stateside.
Got it.
Poor planning.
Yep.
And it was just 3 years in development.
Whoa. Whoa. That's about 2.5 years too long. So
yeah.
But that is so common, Brad. So common. I mean, 99%. What is it, like 70-something% of all projects fail? 90-something% of startups fail.
So
I get it.
Yeah. So we finally, I got, I had enough, and unfortunately, I am a, as I said before, a believer in people. I think all people are good. Like, oh, they're trying their best, until it's so bad that I can't convince myself that they're still looking out for our best interests. So we got rid of them, and now we have our own developers that took over everything.
Wow. So you're winning house. That's cool.
Yeah, and now it's night and day, right? It's like, holy shit! It took that company 4 weeks to do something that you did in a day and a half.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it took them 4 weeks because they're getting hourly checked for 4 weeks. You pay somebody to do it internally. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Israel and I both worked for software development custom dev shops. You got to look at it. It's their business. It's like, oh, I can extend this out for another 4 to 6 weeks. I can deliver this in an hour, but it's like an attorney. I can give them this
so
now,
you have to retain it. It's the retainer model. Like,
that's exactly right. So we, what was really going on is they were either stretching out, but these people were working on multiple projects. Mm-hmm. Our project was getting a sliver of dedicated resources.
Yeah. You were on the lower of the totem pole.
It was a terrible, terrible experience. And
it's a bummer. I'm sorry to hear that. We've all been there.
I could.
Live and you learn.
I was going to say, I've got many other terrible experiences that I could tell you about if you guys really want to know. But it was a terrible experience, but I learned. Now we are live. We are, attacking clients. We are going to be at ProcureCon coming up in Vegas, I guess, in April, exhibiting and speaking.
Excellent. Cool.
And
that's a good conference. I've been there before. It's a good one.
Yeah, and I think now that the biggest challenge is when we talk to clients, and it's that wow moment. They're like so enthusiastic and bought in, but then you can almost see something switch in their mind. Like, how do I explain this?
I was about to say, where do I put this? Where do I put this box? Where do I
there's
compartmentalize
there's no
this?
benchmark.
Right.
And so when they go to try and explain it to somebody else, they miss a piece. They're like, so wait, how does this,
Mhm.
is this a VMS? No, and because it's not like anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, getting over that hump, someone asked us, like, we're doing a demo with a client and they said, tell me why people have said no. And I was like,
Mhm.
nobody has said no.
Mhm.
There's not a single person that has said no. It's just
This is getting them
because
to
it's new.
yes.
Yeah.
Because it's new,
Right.
there is natural hesitancy.
Hmm.
And
Right.
even when we say you realize that your process doesn't change, it costs nothing to deploy. And all you
Yep.
get is cost savings, access to more candidates, and greater retention and employee engagement. And even then, I realized I realized how much people really value that reputational risk,
Oh yes.
of putting your name on something.
Hmm.
And I'd never realized that. And because I don't give a shit. I just do whatever I think is right.
Hmm.
And if it turns out to be wrong, then it's wrong. And I have that luxury because
Right.
I'm an entrepreneur. And
Right.
so my thinking is skewed. And so now I know and I
Yep.
understand that. So I've had to ebb and flow and evolve, the presentation essentially,
Yep. Yeah. You got to win those programs over, right? You got to convince them. You, like you said, you just got to get them to yes. Um, no, this is great. Again, Brad, I admired how many risks you've taken as an entrepreneur. I know those aren't easy, and you're getting to this point and trying to do something different. So, when was Jobvious launched, and how can we get our listeners to it? Where should they find it? I know it's on the App Store, but yeah, just kind of walk a little bit through that.
Sure. Jobvious was launched about 8 months ago.
Okay.
You can get to Jobvious by going to www.itsjobvious.com,
Okay.
and you can watch videos. You can click to join, at which point you just enter your information, and you can create a profile by uploading a resume, or we have an AI resume writer. If you don't have a resume available, you can go through the resume writer within the platform, and it'll whip out a resume for you in 5 minutes. But the key is inviting the people that you know. The
Yep.
more diverse and the greater your population in your network, the more likelihood that you'll earn more and more passive income.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, before we close out, Israel, we got one final question, or any final questions?
Honestly, I'm stumped right now. I'm excited. I am excited to check out the product for sure. I guess my only question would be, how big is the how many users do you currently have?
Right now, to be honest, I'm not sure because it changes daily. A few thousand,
Okay.
Okay.
which is far fewer than the far fewer than I imagined. Of course, being who I
Mm-hmm.
am, I thought we're gonna have 1 million people in 6 months, and
Yeah.
uh, you know, I was put in touch with reality very quickly.
Yeah, that's product, right? You did the whole thing in software and startups.
So
You
I
build it, you
guess
think it's going to
here's
come, right? The field of dreams. That's not true, right? It's
No.
now I do have a question just hit me. So I was consulting for a large financial group. They used Workday, and um, is your goal potentially to sell this to a large company? Because let's say that this large financial institution, they partner with you, and now if they're already requesting um, someone to build and upload their resume and do all the things that you're asking them to do, would that company be able to then double down? And how would that affect their internal talent acquisition? Because um, they're using Workday, they're asking all these same questions. If your product is doing that, then would that company actually then be able to not necessarily double dip, but they're using your product and now you're paying them back to, does that make sense?
I think I had a blip because I'm not sure I'm following that. But if we have a financial institution that's utilizing Jobvious, what we're asking is that their employees engage with Jobvious, build out networks, and then if they have a match, they'll earn passive income, right?
No, so I guess what I'm saying is let's just call it Fidelity. I don't know if that's a real company or not. But
Never heard of it.
So,
Yeah.
right. So instead of the internal recruiters or internal anybody using Jobvious, they substituted, Fidelity did, instead of using, say, Workday. So within Workday, they integrated it. So as these candidates, as the recruiters, the internal recruiters are posting these jobs, and now all these candidates are applying. Now they're applying using the resume and building a profile. So now Fidelity is actually responsible for those invites and everybody, all the thousands of people that are coming in. How could they then use that as a company? Like, does that make sense? Instead of an individual, it's the company that now has all these candidates or their networks.
Yeah, I guess that's a possibility if a company wanted to license it, if that's what you're referring to. But
Well, I didn't know if that was like, and I don't want to ask questions that you don't feel comfortable answering. Is that kind of your goal? Like, what's the goal of the product? Grow it and sell it, and
yeah,
ride off into the sunset as a very happy man.
Yeah, I mean, one of the skills I learned early on was to only let my mind wander and think about this far in front of me, right?
Yep.
Because I think I get into trouble if I start looking too far down the road. And so,
it's like going to a Brazilian steakhouse. Once you start wandering,
right,
you get into some trouble.
Yeah, so I don't really think that far down the road because there's so many things that can happen that can change that path that you conjure up. Right now, my goal is to deploy a product that I truly believe is going to positively impact our industry, both for clients and people. It seems to me that in the true essence of what we do seems like it should reside with the people and not with a couple thousand.
I mean, it used to. Yeah.
And so, and it just seems like that's naturally where it should belong and they should get paid for it. And if I can accomplish that, that's all I would want. But I will tell you, I mean, that in 2023, there was $1.4 trillion spent in the United States on contingent labor. 12.7 million positions filled. My goal was to capture, I just want 5% of the market.
Yeah.
5%.
Yeah.
That's a solid number.
Yeah, that is.
But
it's a great number.
Yeah, think about it though. I mean, our industry is still very, very disconnected, which is why a lot of M&A firms and PE firms, right, are starting to really get excited about it because there's still hundreds of thousands probably of mom and pop staffing companies that you can buy up and roll up into one organization.
In addition to that, independent recruiters. Look at what's happening now. Like 10, 15 years ago, I couldn't be an independent recruiter because I couldn't afford my own payroll. Nowadays, with MyBase Pay and with People2O and all these other EORs and AORs, man, I can do that tomorrow. And
precisely,
the pandemic changed all of that, And now, from an
It did.
independent recruiter perspective, they're jumping on platforms like Paraform. They're jumping on platforms like this, and they're making, like you said, passive income. And
Yeah. Not to mention that the non-compete is no longer
right,
anything. So
Yeah.
when they
Right.
got rid of the non-compete nationwide, it's like, okay, I can take my entire book of business home with me.
yeah, it's really
Precisely.
And in less than a week, I can start an LLC and take a percentage of
yeah.
that.
It's a
Right.
different ball game. It's a different ball game for
It
sure.
is, and when you look at the industry and the massive scale that it is, you know, there's no reason
Mm-hmm.
why we shouldn't be able to capture a sizable sliver of this marketplace, especially with a tool that does not exist and is innovative. And
Yeah.
I didn't know until we built it that there is no referral platform for contingent labor.
There
I
isn't.
had no idea. I know
I've
it
never
seems
seen one.
odd. Yeah,
There's a
it's
massive amount for perm. I have never seen
yeah.
one. When Mike Schiappa called me about you, and he said there's a contingent referral program, I was like, why the heck has this not been done before? Like, because
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
remember back in the, I'm serious. I remember back in the Modus days in 2005. What about 2005 and 2004? We would. I remember I went to my boss at the time, and I just landed a big project with an insurance company in Florida, and I was like, I need to get a bunch of Java developers and testers. Why can't we just, instead of doing this stupid $1,000 bonus fee for working whatever amount of hours, why don't I just give them $1 of the bill rate, and I'll raise the bill rate by $1. So if my bill rate's $60, I'll just raise it by 61, and I'll give that dollar to Israel as an example. And I'll just go to Israel and say, hey, you give me one person, they'll be on contract forever, and you'll just make $1 an hour, which is ironically,
Yeah.
and this is how I used
the
to sell it
same.
at Modus. I used to sell it this way. You're getting paid what I get paid. That was my commission, was $1. So you're actually, in some cases, you're getting more than I am. I'm getting 60 cents,
Right.
you're getting $1. So like when we rolled that out, it was game over, man. I mean, everybody was spewing referrals all day long. And
Why didn't you? I can't believe you didn't invent Jobvious.
hey,
For
you know
God's
what?
sakes.
I was waiting for this conversation, Brad, and waiting for you to do it. But yes, it was just a stupid. I mean, Modus, and interestingly enough, it never rolled out nationwide to Modus. It was like this one little branch doing $1 an hour. That was our referral program, and that was in
That's
2005.
insane.
And so when
Well, it's
Shaffa
probably
told me,
because
I was like,
Modus and Adecco are so small. They
yeah,
didn't have the money to
yeah,
or the resources to
they're like
put
what we
something
like
on
to
like
call
this.
a mom and pop staffing firm. So I mean,
Yeah,
Right.
Adecco. Yeah, they're the mom and pop of
Yeah.
staffing.
no, this is great.
That's
Yeah, no,
impressive. I mean, you were ahead of the times.
no. Well, it was just. I think we were just. I don't know where it came from. I just thought about it like give $1, raise my bill rate by $1, give it $1. There it is. But yeah, didn't really want to take that and scale it, I guess. But you did. So I'm 100% behind you, Brad, on this. I really so.
Yeah,
As a
I'm
final
really looking forward
takeaway.
to taking this for a ride.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. As a final takeaway,
And I'm also looking forward to seeing how my network does against Pete's network once we
oh yeah,
start.
yeah. Oh man. Well,
We build out our
the,
profiles and let's see what we can do.
the sad reality is our network is a pretty big overlap. So we're now
It's a
going to
mirror
have
image
to,
of each other.
but we're going to now have to battle each other on who's going to actually accept my invite. Are they going to accept my invite? Are they going to accept your invite? And then all of a sudden, oh man, that person accepted Israel's. Now it's in it. Oh, okay. So, and then I'm
Yep.
going to be
Yep.
calling you
When you
saying
get
like, what's the split?
when you do get in there, you can send your invite. You have a unique referral link in your profile that you can just copy and paste into a text message. And then when they open it, there's a video talking about Jobvious and so on and so forth.
Awesome. Well, as a
Yeah.
final takeaway, and this is being it's the entrepreneurship month. Um, you had said something just a few minutes ago where you only like to look just a little bit ahead, right? And I took that as a very, very good lesson for an entrepreneur, because typical, if you ever go through an accelerator program and talk to any startup founder, they always say you can drown yourself in opportunities, right? So beyond just that lesson that you just gave us, was just to look a little bit ahead of you, not too far ahead. Do you have like another good takeaway for a future entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, worry about what's in front of you, because you can spend your life worrying about the what ifs and preparing for the what ifs that may never happen. Lastly, give yourself a break, and understand and have faith in yourself that you are going to fall down, you are going to screw up. But if you have grit and determination, you will overcome that. Anybody can be successful if they are determined and they can weather the storm. And that's really a decision that you have to make, on your level of commitment. And those are the most important, I think, things. And of course, value people, value relationships. One of our values here is paying it forward, investing in people, and I think that those are crucial.
1,000%. So
Yeah.
super. So Brad, thank you so much for being a part of the program today. It was great to see you again. Great to have you on. I can't wait
Great to meet you.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks,
I can't
Israel.
wait to start
Good
battling
as well.
Israel for the Jobvious platform. And anybody again that anyone that's at all of our listeners, definitely download the app, go to the App Store, and go to itsjobvious.com.
Actually, all our listeners, just wait for my invite. Wait for my invite, and then.
Ignore
Man.
any invite that comes.
Well, yeah. There it goes. Israel wins. So, all right, I'll take the loss. No, but it's great. Great seeing you.
Yeah.
We'll get this out there, so I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks again for the time. I appreciate it.
All right, see you soon.
All right, you guys too. Take care.
Take care. Bye.